We've got a terrific show all about herbs coming up next. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the show. I'm really excited about what we're going to cover today because I have so much to share with you about one of my favorite subjects, herbs. There's just nothing like them for the garden, in food, or in other ways you might use them around the house. Have you ever had a problem with moths? Well, I'm going to show you how to make an easy herbal moth repellent. And trust me, it smells much better than moth balls. Plus, we'll take a trip to New York and visit the fabulous Bridge Gardens. And I'm also going to talk to you about rosemary, planting herb combos, and answer a viewer question about lavender. As you can see, we have a lot in store for you in this show about herbs. Now first we're going to get started on a fabulous trip to Long Island. You're going to love this garden. And then we're going to get busy on this great recipe. It's so easy, so stay tuned. I don't know about you, but I love to travel when I can see new and exciting gardens. And that's exactly what happened recently when I went to New York, went out on Long Island to Bridgehampton and discovered a beautiful garden called Bridge Gardens. Rick, I can't believe how the knot garden has come on just in 10 days. I was here 10 days ago and gosh, it's a huge amount of growth.
Well, we've had a little bit of heat since you were here last, and I think that's really brought on the plants.
Well, it's just exceptional. Look at the lavender. It's really showing out.
Yes, it's really at its peak right now.
This is really one of the, I guess, stars in the crown at Bridge Gardens.
Yeah, I think it's one of our most popular gardens. I'd say it's also our most complete garden now at this point.
Yeah.
So it is a classic herb garden design, and we have a culinary bed, a medicinal bed.
Now this is the culinary, I guess, because of the fennel.
These are the culinary herbs, yes, right. And lots of your old favorites, basil and thyme and oregano and sage and so forth.
Yeah.
And then we also have a medicinal bed over there, tansy, self-heal.
You certainly see some achillea there.
Yes, a classic medicinal herb, and some not so classic ones too. And in the back we have our textile and dye herbs beds, and then we have what we call ornamental herbs over there, kind of a miscellany.
Well, with all the diversity, I can see how these central plants, I'll call them the framework plants, such as the boxwood, the barberry, and the lavender, help hold the garden together.
Yes, they definitely anchor the garden throughout the year, summer and winter.
Rick, I got to applaud you on the boxwood garland that you're clipping into this hedge. I mean, where do you find the time?
Well, it takes about a whole day just to do the boxwood, and you have to use scissors and little grass shears, but it's worth it. It really is. It's a very unique look for a boxwood hedge.
It is totally unique. I've never seen it before, and I love the way the garlands crisscross across the top.
Yes.
I really like the way you've used the shells as a mulch in the center part of the bed.
Yeah, it's again very unusual. You don't see shells used as a mulch very often, but we thought it was appropriate for here at the east end of Long Island to use that.
Yeah, this is just phenomenal, Rick. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Alan.
And thanks for sharing it with us.
You're very welcome.
Now after the break, we'll get a jump start on that herbal moth repellent and take a trip down south to Alabama, so stay with us. I don't know about you, but I don't like using things that are toxic in my home, so I'm always looking for herbal or natural ways to get rid of problems. Now I guarantee you this herbal moth repellent will keep the moths on the run. Apparently, what smells good to us doesn't smell good to a moth. Now you want to start with a large bowl just for mixing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to combine these ingredients. I'm going to start with the wormwood, 1 ounce of dried wormwood, 2 ounces of dried rosemary, the leaves, and the blooms of lavender, about 4 ounces. You'll also want to take some of those rose petals dried from last season's roses, about a handful. Look at that. Even though you don't have the intense colors like you would have in the garden, this recipe makes up the intensity in the aroma. Now that brings us to our essential oils. Now, what you want to do here is use about 30 drops of lavender, all right? So you don't have to be precise with this. And then what you want to do is you want to use about 5 drops of rosemary oil. You can use that little dropper, but I'm not that patient. I'm going to mix this around before I add the vetiver, just to make sure that we're distributing those essential oils. Now, vetiver is the essential oil of a grass, and we want 5 drops of the vetiver. All right, I'm going to mix that around. Again, you want to distribute as much of the essential oil as possible. And then what you can do, when it's done, you can pack it in these little sachet bags and tie them up like that. Or you can simply put it in a jar like this. Cover it with a lid and then puncture holes in the top. And it smells so divine. So give it a try. Speaking of herbs, let's shift from dry to fresh. I recently had a chance to visit Bonnie Plant Farm in Union Springs, Alabama, where they have tons of rosemary. Just check it out. You know, if someone said, Alan, if you lived on a deserted island, you could only have one herb, which one would it be? I'd have to say it would be rosemary. This is the most amazing herb around. It's actually a woody plant that will make a shrub if grown in temperatures that are mild. For centuries, it has been used in Mediterranean-styled gardens as a hedge. You can actually clip this, and it can be quite beautiful. But I think the reason to grow rosemary is not so much as a decorative plant in the garden, but for its aroma and its culinary use. What a clean, wonderful aroma. Now, you may say, hey, I don't have a lot of room or time to garden. This is the plant for you. If you want to limit it to just a few plants, make sure among them you have rosemary. These will grow beautifully in containers out on your deck or patio. Just make sure that you have plenty of sun. And when it comes to soil, these plants have to have well-drained soil. So whatever you put in the container, make sure there's plenty of sand or grit where the water will not stand around the roots. But it also produces a beautiful flower that comes in various shades of blue and some white, depending on the variety you plant. Now, the reason I grow rosemary is because it tastes so good. Try this. Take a baking tin and slide just the tips of rosemary like this up under the skin of the chicken. Then fill the cavity of the chicken with wedges of lemon. Then just take some sea salt and rub it over it and roast it. You talk about good. And it all comes from, well, all those different flavors working together, but I tell you, rosemary plays a principal role. You see, all of those essential oils in the leaves permeate through the bird, and it is delicious. Your friends and family will love it. Give it a try. Now, after the break, we'll visit the garden home retreat so I can show you what I do with herbs when it gets a little cool outside. So stay tuned. The hotter it gets outside, the more flowers luscious citrus blend lantana produce. The blooms in citrus blend are clusters of tiny, brilliant red-orange flowers and a few yellow ones in the center. I've planted them in combination with coleus, such as this one called Texas Parking Lot. What a name. And this one with really bright foliage called Big Red Judy. This is a plant that does not need a lot of water during the summer. So think about that when you're planting your garden. If you're like me, you want to keep your herbs as long as you can. And just because it's turning from fall to winter is no reason why you can't keep them. I bring them in and set them by a large window, and I can use them right through the winter. But when I do, I make sure that I'm not bringing in any little hitchhikers, any insects that might come in. I just take a safe insecticide like this and give them a good soak. And I don't have to worry about this harming pets, family members, or friends, and it makes the herbs very happy. And with that, I can set them in the window. The thing I want to make sure is I don't overwater, and I will keep them in this saucer, as you can see here. And I'll put them in a window that will get eastern light, about half-day sun, and slightly indirect, not right up against the glass. And I'll be able to enjoy herbs, well, for the next 3 or 4 months. Okay, now it's time to take a look at some viewer mail. Now this letter comes from Amber in Florida, and she writes, "Hi Alan, I live in Central Florida, and I'd like to know how I can get that wonderful aroma of lavender in my home. I've cut it and brought it in the house, but it doesn't seem to have the smell I was hoping for. Can you help me?" Well, Amber, a couple things you need to keep in mind. If you try to grow lavender in a place like Florida where it's really hot and humid, and where I grow my lavender, it's hot and humid, you may want to try to grow it in a container. I've grown several varieties, but one that works very well is one called Munstead. It's an English variety. It's very aromatic. I found that the key to keeping those aromatic oils in the plant is to harvest the plant at the proper time. You see, I cut my lavender when the buds are swollen, but not yet open. And I collect my lavender in mid-morning after the dew's burned off, but not when the temperatures are hot. You see, aromatic oils burn off as the day heats up, reducing the scent. You can dry lavender by spreading it out on a cloth or a mat in a warm room with no direct sunlight. You see, the sun tends to bleach out the color as well as reduce the amount of aroma. Amber, I hope this answers your question. Good luck with your project. I'm like you, I think you can't have enough lavender around. Okay, now we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll learn about this great recipe, so stay with us. You know, this quail is so good this time of year. What do you think, Peter?
That looks perfect. Absolutely perfect. Nicely dredged.
There we go. All right.
Now,
I'm here with my friend Peter Brave, and he is creating one of my favorite recipes that he serves in his restaurant, Brave New. It's a gorgeous quail recipe, and it's so easy. So what's next, Peter?
well, we've marinated this quail for about 4 or 5 hours in a little mirepoix, some red wine, and some olive oil, a little cracked black pepper. Go ahead and let those flavors marry. And then after you slightly dredged it there and just straight flour, I've got a very hot skillet here. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to it. That's one of the things the home cooks have a tendency to cook not at high enough temperatures in my estimation, just because you want a nice searing and it quickly seals in the flavors and the juices. I'm going to carefully go ahead and put this quail in here and let him start to go ahead and sear. All right, now you can tell just by the way it's sizzling like that, it's a very nice hot skillet.
Yeah.
And it's going to create a little bit of a crust. The skin's going to go ahead and start to mix with that oil, a little flour and seasonings that we put on there.
Locking in those flavors.
Absolutely, it'll make it stay nice and moist. So this is also going to kind of demonstrate a couple little different techniques that I think are fun. I'm trying to kind of rotate the oil around in the skillet so it doesn't get too hot in one place. Otherwise, you run the risk of it getting a little burnt.
Right.
Which you want it nice and golden brown, but you don't want it to have any of the extra too dark of a color.
So scooting the quail around, and on one side, how long?
Probably about 30 or 45 seconds. And as we're doing this, like I said, constantly moving around, some of that flour and some of the stuff from the quail is going to go ahead and come out and make a little bit of a fond.
Yep, there we go. Well, look
Beautiful.
at that.
Golden brown.
Gorgeous.
Now, what I'm going to do is, this is a nice little trick, an oven-proof handle. I've got an oven at 400 degrees over here. We'll go ahead and put that in there.
Leaving it in the oil.
Leaving it in the oil and in the skillet and everything. That's a little technique that the restaurant people use a whole lot because you don't have to monitor it. You're getting heat from all sides instead of just from below. And it allows me, if I was in the restaurant, I would be using this time to prep the plate, put the vegetables on the plate or something like that. So
very good.
A very nice little restaurant trick to go ahead and utilize on the home kitchen for sure.
Well, it is such a delicious recipe, and you know, it's the fact that you've used this mirepoix to help season it. Now, the classic mirepoix is just simply carrots and some celery and onion and so forth.
Absolutely. It's about a 50% onion, 25% carrot, 25% celery ratio. Well, let me go ahead and check on this quail.
That's great.
It only takes about a minute and a half.
I'm loving learning your secrets here.
We love sharing with y'all. So, okay, now this one, I mean, we did nice real time here, and it was only in there about a minute and a half.
Right.
And one of the things I think people fail to realize is that when you're doing something like this, you're going to pull the quail out nice and crispy, golden brown, just beautiful. It was boneless to begin with, and so it's going to go ahead and it's going to cook very fast initially. Now I've got this, whatever's the flour and the oil that's in here, I'm going to go ahead and just dump this out.
Right.
The skillet that's got a little bit of the flour and a little bit of what they call the fond on the bottom.
Right.
Now I want to very carefully pour this away from me because we're going to probably get some good flames here.
Yeah.
There we go, nice. So that was beautiful. A little bit of red wine. We're deglazing, getting all these components.
When you do this at home, be careful.
Then I've got a little bit of chicken stock right here.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to add that. And then I've got about a tablespoon of lingonberries. Lingonberries is kind of a fun berry that comes in primarily out of the Scandinavian region.
Yeah.
You could substitute cranberries very easily to do a cranberries like this. So now what I've got is just a little bit of a pan skillet sauce. I'm going to go ahead and roll it around. You can see the hot sauce is going to go ahead and continue to reduce down. As it reduces down, it'll get more and more of a sauce-like consistency. And right when it gets to about where I want it, I'm going to fold in a little bit of whole butter, and I'm going to fold in some of these beautiful flat leaf parsley and this beautiful leaf thyme that came right off the back porch out here.
Yep.
So we're getting close here. I'm going to go ahead and
now, would this be enough sauce for one quail feeder? Or a couple?
It would probably work for a couple. This recipe could very easily, when the size of the skillet and all that kind of stuff, you could double it up.
Well, I would want that much for one quail. It looks delicious.
It is going to make a wonderful sauce. And that butter, what it does is it adds a little bit of sheen to the sauce, a little bit of shine to it.
Does.
And it
Not
also,
to mention the flavor.
It adds a lot of flavor to it, no doubt about it. So you can see how that all folds in. And you know, we did this in real time, and I mean, we're talking about less than 5 minutes basically from start to finish.
Yeah.
You want to marinate your quail obviously for ahead of time, but you can do that.
Again, how long was it marinated?
About 4 hours, I'd say at least. You could do it up to overnight. You do it much farther than that, it has a tendency to be a little bit too overpowering.
Yeah, it looks like we're about ready here.
Absolutely. So we've got that sauce reduced down nice, done. And we'll just pour that right over that quail. And there you have it. A simple, beautiful fresh quail with a pan sauce with lingonberries and a little bit of the fresh herbs.
Well, as soon as it cools off, I'm going to taste it. Thank you so much for
It's been a
sharing your
pleasure, Alan.
recipe. It's always a pleasure to have you out here at the farm.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I just wish you could smell the aroma. It's so incredible, these little sachets. They'll keep the moths on the run. Now listen, if there's anything in today's show that you want information on, you can always check out my website. That's pallensmith.com. There you'll find that great tasting recipe. Until next time, from the garden, I'm Alan Smith.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.